Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Hello all, and how you guys all doing tonight? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and to kind of modify a catchphrase from our subject tonight, the man has come back around to YouTube! That's right. We are here tonight to talk about episode number 19 of the WWE 24 review series, as we now go to episode number 19, which marks us at halfway through the series. We have Becky Lynch, the man. This is a behind-the-scenes look at Becky's journey to eventually main eventing the first women's match to main event a WrestleMania. There's only been 2 women's matches now to main event a WrestleMania. Becky's match, and then from WrestleMania Night 1 from WrestleMania 17 between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. I surprisingly do not remember this documentary. I figured, because I know for a fact, I can't remember it all, but I know for a fact I've watched the next one we're going to do, which is the one on Ronda Rousey's first year. But I surprisingly did not remember this one. I really didn't. But this was a very good documentary, because I feel like it really showed that a lot that what Becky Lynch went through, especially in 2018 when she became the man, and how she was struggling for a couple years in the company, kind of was an afterthought. And I felt like, a lot of things we saw on TV was her real frustrations. And us fans were frustrated as well too with how they were just dropping the ball with Becky. And they tried to make Becky the heel in that storyline. It was not going to work. And of course, besides the fact that she turned on Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam 2018, it also took an unlucky punch to the face for Becky Lynch to really finally get noticed how much of a badass she really is. This was an excellent documentary. Definitely another one I would probably rank up there as one of my favorites. Like I said, I don't remember it before I watched it tonight, but I thought it was very well done. Very great story. Becky seems just like a very chill person in general. So she was definitely an excellent subject. But let's get into it and talk about it. And also, I'll be talking about how I was literally just got done 20 minutes looking up something that I will share what it is when we get to the part. Basically, it has to do with like a funny backstage segment she had in 2018 that kind of got her attention again, well, for the company at least. But anyway, so they didn't talk too much about Becky's beginnings. They did briefly go over how she grew up in Dublin. She was definitely a huge wrestling fan. Mick Foley was kind of her influence, someone that she really got behind that made her a fan. And her brother, whose name was Richard, was also a wrestling fan. And I guess they used to wrestle each other for the fun of it and whatnot. She was very tomboyish and whatnot. And I think they said her brother actually knew Finn Balor, or of course to him, Fergal Devitt, or Fergie Devitt. And when he went to train, Becky went as well. Now, they did emphasize and show video footage. Becky, when she first started, did not have the in-ring ability at all. But Finn, everyone else kept saying it, there was just something about her that made it look like she was going to be able to get it. And she did. She would start wrestling on the indies as a teenager. But then, I think it was in 2006, she suffered a concussion in a show in Germany. And she basically got talked out of continuing wrestling. So that was the last match she had in her career for, I think, 7 years, I believe she said. During that time, she moved to the United States. Well, I think she went to Canada. I think she was in New York and Chicago. She was a flight attendant. She was, I think, looking into acting and whatnot and a few other things. But she just could not help herself. And she eventually came back to wrestling. She one day called Robbie Brookside, and she got herself a tryout when the Performance Center had just started. And they showed, I don't remember who it was against, but her first ever NXT match. She had kind of like a dancing leprechaun type gimmick or whatnot. Don't know much about it, but you know, it seemed like, you know, it was a nice starting character for Becky in the company. But then, of course, she eventually did rise up, and people were definitely, you know, really behind her. My first memory of Becky Lynch, I will always say, is her match against Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable in 2015. That's the first time I ever saw Becky Lynch, and I thought she was awesome. She, of course, would make her main roster debut, part of the whole Divas Revolution, and all seemed good going into WrestleMania 32, and as she says, they freaking stole the show. I do agree that was probably the best match on WrestleMania 32. But then things started to go downhill. She mentioned, of course, like I said earlier, she did mention the promo that Paige cut in 2015 when she turned heel on her and Charlotte, that Becky was the least relevant of this whole group. And unfortunately, for a while, she was right. Because even though it was Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky on the main roster who stole the show at WrestleMania, they were kind of giving more of the praises to Charlotte and Sasha. I didn't notice, but one thing that really made Becky upset, and I really fell for when they did this, was at the following year's WrestleMania, they had Mattel release these dolls to commemorate that match for WrestleMania 32. They only made dolls, though, for Charlotte and Sasha. And Becky sit right next to them. She's like, I was in the match too, you know. And she did great. And I'm pretty sure, and I've read somewhere too, where Vince wasn't crazy about Becky Lynch because the fact that she was Irish and that she had an Irish accent. That's really the reason why Vince wouldn't push her. And he probably was going to do any way he could to kind of like run Becky into the ground. Now, they didn't talk about this in the documentary, but I remember years ago in 2016, in the summer of 2016 actually, there was that match at Money in the Bank when Becky teamed with Natalya against Charlotte and Dana. There were rumors floating around that originally Becky was supposed to be the one to turn heel after that match, not Natalya, but they went with Natalya instead. And then, like I said, for the next 2 years, well, she did get drafted to SmackDown, away from Charlotte and Sasha, and basically had her own brand to be the star of. She was the first SmackDown Women's Champion, but then after she dropped the title to Alexa Bliss at TLC, she kind of went very irrelevant for the next couple of years. And it wasn't until, because she even mentioned too, WrestleMania 37, she was in that six-pack challenge that was supposed to be on the pre-show, but got moved to the main show. WrestleMania 34, she was on the pre-show in the Women's Battle Royale. And of course, the crowd was booing when Becky got eliminated, so she did see that the crowd was still behind her. That's one thing she definitely worried, like, you know, does the crowd still want me and whatnot? And then she said she thinks things started to turn around. This was what I was trying to find before I started recording, because I couldn't remember the name of the food she was eating. But there was this backstage segment she recorded on the SmackDown after WrestleMania. People were wondering, well, her and Charlotte are best friends. Why didn't Becky come out to save Charlotte when the Iconics attacked Charlotte and Carmella cashed in? Well, there was a backstage showing how Becky Lynch was in catering eating. This is what I had to look up. And I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out what this was called. I think it's called keema. Some type of Irish food thing. It was called keema, I think it was. And she caught some funny. She cut some promo that showed a ton of personality and that some humor. That, you know, she was unaware that Charlotte got attacked because she was just occupied eating her keema. And the following week when she got attacked again, you see her backstage going, "Not happening again," drops it and runs away. She thinks that's kind of where the switch kind of flicked, which I do agree too. Because that summer, Becky was gaining a lot of momentum. She was winning a ton of matches, and everybody was praising for her to be the one to dethrone Carmella at SummerSlam and have her moment. I remember I had a bad feeling when I saw that they had Becky Lynch beat Carmella to earn that opportunity in a non-title match. I just had that bad feeling something else was going to be to it. And sure enough, it was. Because Charlotte Flair earned her way into the match as well. And that's why I even started worrying too, like, are they going to turn Becky heel? And at the time, I'm like, everyone is so sick of Charlotte Flair. No offense to Charlotte, but people are tired of her seemingly stepping in front of everyone. People wanted Becky to have her moment. And when Becky Lynch turned heel on Charlotte after she lost at SummerSlam, again, they were trying to make Becky the heel. They had Becky cut this promo on SmackDown, and I think they edited it out on the YouTube page, where she doubted the fans were truly ever behind her. Which, again, is total BS. They had to have known from the start the fans were not going to boo Becky Lynch. I mean, we're not going to boo Becky Lynch over Charlotte Flair. And, you know, they did give Becky the title, but they still were just trying to make her the heel. They tried to make her a coward and everything, but it just wasn't working. And then came the highly anticipated match, build for the match, the champion versus champion match for Survivor Series between her and Ronda Rousey, which rumors have it was originally supposed to main event that show in 2018 for Survivor Series, which it should have been. But then there was the famous segment on Raw on the Go Home show where Becky Lynch got punched in the face during the brawl by Nia Jax and broke Becky's nose. And as Becky said, she finished the segment, looked like a badass. Basically, it was her Stone Cold Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13 moment. Everybody's comparing it to, of course, in that video. But then, as she said, when I walked out of the arena into the darkness, I couldn't remember a thing. And she, in fact, did break her nose. She was concussed. She was not medically cleared to compete at Survivor Series. Yeah, that really sucks. Especially since we never got that one-on-one match between the two of them. Heck, to be honest, I still think WrestleMania 35's main event should have just been Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. You didn't need to have Charlotte in that match. I'm sorry. You didn't. I know Charlotte is probably they consider the company's best wrestler in the last 10 years. But I'm sorry. You can't tell me there was a more hype match, a match that everybody was praying for than Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. And they had to, of course, do all that. But anyways, that was that thing, because Becky was even worried too, will this halt her momentum not being in this match? That's why she's trying to fight to still be in the match, but they wouldn't clear her. And then, of course, worse, a couple weeks later, she dropped the title at TLC to Asuka in that triple threat TLC match, which was awesome, by the way. I think it was the day after that match, she found out her father had been diagnosed with lung cancer. And she flew home for Christmas that year to Dublin and got to spend Christmas with her family, some friends she hadn't seen in a long time. JD McDonough was actually one of them that was at that dinner that she showed, and also talk about how Becky just really loved Christmas, and I can see that too. But yeah, of course, that obviously shook her up. I did look up, though, I can't remember if it was mentioned on the channel back then or not, but her father did actually die in March of 2021. He was able to be at WrestleMania 35 for her big moment. She was able to be around for when she married Seth Rollins and when she gave birth to their only child, Rue. I think that was her name. If I mispronounced it, I'm sorry. So she went home, just, regrouped after TLC. Came back, got into the Royal Rumble, won the match. She wasn't supposed to be in it, but then she came out to replace Lana. Begged Finlay to let her replace Lana when Lana got hurt. She went in, won the match. The storyline did kind of get a little overproduced after that. They could have dumbed some things down a little bit. I think they just made it a lot more complicated than it should have been, in my opinion. But we all know the story. Becky eventually did, get to WrestleMania. She had her, just showed her getting her gear and her other stuff ready. Just talking about her feeling, how, she was leaving the hotel at 10 a.m. And then she knew she was going to be wrestling until a little after midnight that night. As she said, WrestleMania 35 was on April 7th. But the main event was on April 8th, which she was not lying. That was a long night. I know that because I was there that night. And I still would say the match they had was good. But of course, what hurt it though was that finish. I remember Becky did explain what happened with that botched finish. But I still thought it was a good match. That botched finish though hurt it from being a classic. I think if they would have not had that botched finish and finish it how it should have been, that could have been a classic. And also, they said, too, it was a long night. The fans were tired. Yes, we were. They were able to still maintain the fans, though, in that main event, which I was glad to see for them happen. And Becky Lynch did indeed get her moment at WrestleMania. She became Becky Two Belts. She basically ended it by saying, what do you do when your dreams come true? Make up more dreams or something like that. And it kind of had a little bit of an abrupt end to it. But, yeah. Becky Lynch did, in fact, prove us all wrong. After everything she went through. They didn't get into how I think during her 7 years away from the ring, she did kind of go through depression, I think, and whatnot. They didn't really get into that, but I've heard rumors. I wonder, because she does have a book out. I know I'm not a big book reader. The last book I actually did sit down to read was with Daniel Bryan's book that he wrote after he main evented WrestleMania 30. I would be opposed to trying to read Becky Lynch's biography. If I ever do, think of it someday. Wow, my wife just asked me, said I didn't know you knew how to read. Thanks a lot! But, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll take a look at it. We'll see. It does sound like she has a lot. This documentary did present a good story for her, and it felt like there is more to her story that I could very well learn from that book as well. But yeah, a great story with Becky Lynch. Like I said, so much. I forgot to mention this too. They did show her the day of Survivor Series showing up, and she obviously was still unhappy about not being able to wrestle her match with Ronda Rousey. She was not happy when she saw that she wasn't on the Survivor Series poster. And she said that this was not before she got injured or whatnot. She still should have been on that poster. Like I said, between that, the stuff with the dolls too and whatnot, and other things, you could tell she was for real frustrated. Because, eventually it did cause a fallout with her and Charlotte for a few years. I think from the War Games match in 2023, I think that they officially did kind of mend some fences and whatnot. But we'll see. And I still also don't understand why, even though Becky was a heel at the time in 2022, why they didn't have, when Ronda came back, why they didn't do Ronda versus Becky. You would have thought if anyone Ronda would have wanted to get her hands on, it'd be Becky based off of their history and how the match at WrestleMania 35 ended. But I don't know. That's a match that, again, I'm pretty sure we're never going to get one-on-one, and I'm kind of a little bitter about it too. Especially since we were supposed to get it at Survivor Series 2018, and it should have been the main event of WrestleMania 35, but you had to throw in Charlotte. But, you know, it is what it is. Becky's awesome, and this was an awesome story. So what are your guys' thoughts on WWE 24's Becky Lynch, The Man? Leave your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Have you also read Becky's biography or her book at all? Is it good? Would you recommend me checking it out? Maybe someday I will, who knows? Leave your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Slap a like on the video. I can't stop laughing about my wife saying she didn't know I can read. Slap a like on the video. Subscribe for more content to my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well, at the Club with the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at the Club with the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you guys all later. I'll see you guys in the next review for this series, which is Becky's rival, her opponent, which is called WWE24's Revolutionary, the year of Ronda Rousey, which you go behind the scenes from Ronda Rousey's first year in WWE, leading up to when she was a part of the main event of WrestleMania 35. We have a few topics leading up to WrestleMania 35 matches in the next couple, and we'll go from there. So until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later, and do not forget, Becky Lynch may be the man, but I am the man, and for I am the man himself. Had to modify that there for a second, but that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!